Hello and welcome to the Temple Tinkered. I am Jim, aka Argent Wind, and I'm your dungeon master here on the House of Gamers Discord server. We are here for DM&D chat, which may or may not get a rework in terms of a title down the road here, but for right now, we'll stick with what we'll go with what we've got here. So, DM&D chat it is. We today are talking about shaking it up, how to kind of get a game maybe out of a rut or kind of push things along or move things into a new direction. Different ways you can liven up the game that might need a little bit of a shove in a different direction. We did talk about before ways to prevent burnout and ways to liven up a game or anything like that. This will be a little bit somewhat similar, but some different advice here. We also have a couple of questions that came in from people during the week, specifically from our friend here on the Discord server, Stigthorpe, had a question there, and Dow had a question. So we're going to address both of those as part of today's topics. So, as always, if you're looking for games, come on over to the House of Gamers. We are having some new games starting up soon. We have some new one-shots, and we are branching out into other TTRPGs. So you're going to see some more of those things happening. Some games are going on here. We occasionally have new openings as people's schedules change or whatever happens. So if you're looking for games there, come on over. And if you're looking to run games, as always, we've got players who are ready to run. So definitely check it out and come and hang out. So, shaking it up. How to liven, how to shake that up there and kind of push it in the right direction. And then some other ways to shake things up there: introducing new players, introducing maybe some guest players occasionally, and then how to encourage role playing moments in there, because a lot of times what can really drive a party to have a lot of fun is letting them just go wild with a roleplay moment. Just letting them do things in character, having a fun time with a bunch of NPCs. So there's a lot of different things we can do there to drive ourselves into a new direction for a campaign. So one way to kind of break out of a rut is take a look at the types of encounters you've had so far. And if you've had a lot of combat encounters and they all kind of go a certain way, or the setup for those encounters is very, very similar, like they get a rumor, go someplace, find out what's there, fight the bad guy, collect the loot, move on to the next rumor. That kind of thing, while it's fun and it can help drive a story along, it can also get repetitive. So what you want to consider is maybe turning those encounters around. Whereas maybe instead of a combat encounter, now it becomes more of a roleplay encounter or a heist where stealth is more required, or they have to plan things out and figure out how to get into some place without killing a bunch of people. Obviously, if you're a good aligned party and you're supposed to go into a town and take something from someone, just going into someone's house and killing everybody that's there is not a good idea. You could get in trouble. You're also going to be in trouble if you have clerics and paladins who are worshiping certain gods and suddenly they're just planning out murders and everything else like that. It can cause some friction with their extraplanar allies. So consider just a different type of encounter. Kind of go through your past notes and those that and see what do these things have in common and what haven't I done. Maybe it's time for a dungeon crawl if you haven't done one of those. Maybe it's time to go on a road trip to someplace brand new. Maybe it's time to jump into the elemental planes, or off into the Feywild or some other place where there's the rules are all different. And I see Zach's here. Cool. And Dow, both of you guys there. Hello there. So again, when you have a situation where things feel like they're getting stale or things are getting repetitive, how to turn the encounter around, how to move into a new direction, and just try something different where it may not be the same type of encounter, but it's still the same setting, it's still the same plot, still the same characters. Just having a different goal in mind can really change the direction of the counter or maybe even the campaign. So again, try a different approach. Another way to, even among your encounters, alter the win condition. A lot of times, most of our encounters are beat the bad guys, get the loot. So if the win condition might be survive a certain amount of time, or solving a riddle or a puzzle. Maybe there isn't actually any enemies to fight. It's a matter of figuring out the way to get to navigate through an area or finding allies that can help you. These things essentially are different types of encounters, different ways to kind of bypass or try to move the story along that don't involve just the same old hack and slash. So, um, so again, maybe even if it is hack and slash, tweak the combat a little bit, where instead of having like that's obviously the boss, maybe there's a bunch of similar people and it's finding the right enemy is the problem. This is the key to finishing this fight because this is the guy in charge and all these guys are minions that look just like him. Or it could be that the real power behind the encounter is hidden, or you have to find a way to cause them to come forth or be revealed in some way so you can go after them. So again, a if it is a combat encounter, try a different tact, try a different win condition for your encounters, and then just see just think of a different way to go. You can occasionally have mixing it up by having people. So if you have a party that's really reliant on magic, a great way to throw an encounter on its ear is to have anti-magic or a lot of spellcasters who have counterspell or dispel magic that can continuously stymie the party's main skill they usually have. So now they have to think in a different way to overcome that encounter. The normal ways of just dropping that fireball and doing this fly spell and going invisible, those things all become not available to them. And so a different tact might be needed. So again, mix it up. Shaking it up. Exactly. So another way to shake up the plot line, shake up the campaign a little bit there is potentially introducing a new player. Now we've talked in the past about when you didn't plan for a player to leave, or maybe because schedules changed, someone had to leave. But if you have a room at your table or in your game there, and can potentially bring in a new player, even if it's for a temporary thing or even just a guest one shot, that new player can add a new element to the campaign and again shake things up. Now you're going to want to make sure, again, talk this over with your party. Say, hey, I'm thinking about bringing a new player in. What do you think of this person? You're going to want to have sort of maybe not a session 0, but a session 1/2 in between, where you basically said, kind of give that person a lot of information about how to join the party, how their character is going to be worked into the party. So that way it isn't just like, boom, new guy, go. That can be interesting, but at the same time, it can lead to some real friction or some problems there. So again, you kind of want to think about ways to introduce that and talk it over with the new player and potentially with the party as well. So some things to keep in mind, though, when bringing in a new player is you may have a situation where you have a brand new player to role play. Maybe it's someone who's always wanted to try, and you're willing to give them a shot in an existing game. They're brand new to role playing. They want to be in a game so badly, and they just want to join in. So, some ways to make that transition have the best have that person and the table in general have the best experience possible. So that new player, they should be able to expect being treated with respect, have people having patience, especially if they're brand new to role playing, and understanding that if they're clear that this person's new, they might need a little bit of help with like what to roll or how to do things. Now, I will say this: it can get very overwhelming for that person if they're brand new to just have everybody saying, "Do this, do that, do that." So you may want to maybe specifically say designate a buddy for that person. Like, hey, could you help this person make that role? Or make sure that you're the buddy and saying, hey, if you have time, help them out, tell them what to click on, tell them what to roll. And in a way that makes them feel like people are being helpful and not annoyed. So, again, that patience, understanding, and just respect, because this person's it may be a temporary guest or maybe a person going to be joining the campaign. So you want to make sure that they feel welcome, because nothing is worse in a role playing game when you join up and the people are hostile or they're jerks to you, or everyone has their own little things and you feel left out. So again, if you're going to shake it up there by bringing a new player in there, especially if it's a brand new player there, keep that in mind that this is going to cause maybe some hiccups here and there, but it can really also bring a whole new element into the game. Maybe a character class that wasn't there before. Maybe it's a type of person or a type of player that wasn't there before that can really shake things up for the whole table and make for some fun moments. Um, so with that new player, whether they're an experienced player or not, you're going to want to have sort of a session zero with just them. Sit down and tell them about the world, tell them about the game as much as you can there, and tell them how they fit into the story. So that way they don't come in going, I don't know anything that's going on. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what this place is. I don't even know how this game works. So you want to set them up for as much success as possible. And that's going to be really talking to them, sitting them down, and explaining to them what they need to know. Now, it shouldn't be just a massive lore dump and just, here's all you need to know. It's going to be more on the lines of, here's the very basics. This is what's out there. Let's work out your character, what they do, what they know. And then here's what you know about the party already, or maybe you know nothing, depending on what the situation is of them joining. And then kind of let them figure out their place and what they want to accomplish, what they want to do as a character. Because again, the party that's already established has been playing for a while. They know what's going on. They know who their characters are and what they can do, usually. But this person's going to be brand new. So this is going to be a situation where maybe they don't know their character very well, even if they are an experienced player, but they don't know how they fit in yet. So keep that in mind when you're bringing in someone new, that they're going to need help, and you want to set them up for as much success as possible. So beyond changing up your approach, bringing in other players, another way to really shake things up is to really encourage role play moments. A lot of times role play is kind of hit or miss in some games. Some games are very much more, we want to go kill things, we want to hack and slash, and it's all about combat and getting loot and all this other stuff like that. But there's always going to be opportunities for role play. And so there's two ways you can really kind of go about this. First off, introduce an NPC that has things in common with the player. Maybe who's tied to one of the player's backstories. Maybe who's a local in a place where the player has been frequenting, or maybe a shopkeeper who they've been to a couple times, but now they're kind of opening up and maybe have a chance to like role play a little bit with them. So kind of bring in an NPC that has something in common with one or more of the party members, and then just go for it. Have that person ask them questions. Where'd you grow up? What's going on? Why are you always coming around here? Why are you interested in buying that kind of item? What have your adventures been? Just ask them questions and then let them respond in character. Because again, those role-playing moments really add to the feel for the game, and they give you ways of livening up the session in ways. Now, if you're really lucky, you'll get a situation where the players will start up role-playing with each other. And that's when I would say, when you get those opportunities, just sit back and let it happen. Let that role play go along there. Let them do their things here. Now you can do things to kind of encourage things or toss some things out there, or if something's going on a little bit long, or it's kind of dragging down a little bit, that there you can have maybe another NPC at that point step in and interrupt, or have something happen that they have to react to in some way. But at least give them that opportunity. And especially when they take the opportunity, let them go and let them run with it. Just sit back and enjoy the moment. And if you have to, if there's something that is happening in the background, you may even want to consider saying, either a private message or pass someone a note if you're at a table there, something that's saying, hey, while these guys are talking, you notice this happening in the background. Or you hear something off in the distance, but you're not sure what it is. These guys are sitting there talking or doing whatever. So that way, that gives a player in the group a way to jump in and say, hey, guys, something's happening. Let's go check it out. So that That way, they sort of interrupt and they drive that change in scene or that change in narrative. So, encouraging those role playing moments, either by yourself or with each other, is a great way to change up the pacing of a session, is a great way to let them delve into their characters more and get into their personalities more. Because otherwise, all we're doing is just rolling dice and the dungeon master telling people what's happening. And while that can be fun, the real meat of I think of a role playing game is the actual inter-character role play and those chances to show off. I wouldn't say acting skills, but I mean it is sort of improv and acting. You are finding ways to kind of get into character and act out things. So when you have the opportunities, really go for it. Um, so I mentioned this before in terms of bringing in new players, but a fun way to potentially shake things up is a guest player. And I did have the opportunity of bringing a guest player into the game a couple weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. Again, I still had sort of a before the session there. I kind of prepped them on we kind of figured out who their character was. This is Dennis, our okayest DM. It was a few sessions ago playing pest control, a dwarven urban ranger working for the syndicate in the city. So there was a good, fun little time there with bringing in somebody who was so the characters are brand new to a new city. This person shows up and saying, "Hey, these guys can help me with a job. I can help them out too." So they sort of give them idea. So when I brought the player in there, I decide what kind of character he wanted to run, gave him a little bit of background, gave him what he knew about the city. We sort of collaborated on a location that they would be able to take the party to have a little conversation and talk, and then worked out what kind of job that would be involved here. So it was a good time, and it was a very different session for the group. They had some interesting opportunities for combat and bypassed them all in ways that didn't involve them actually rolling dice for fighting. But they had a lot of fun role playing moments, a lot of good times, experiencing things in the world they hadn't seen before. So the best way to bring in a guest player is, again, make sure there's a good plan for how they're going to be introduced to the party. And make sure they're clear that they're as a player what the motivations of their character are going to be and how they fit into the plot. Um, so, and then again, whatever you can do to set them up for success. And then this is a great one there. When they come in, you just say, "Here they are, at new person, group, existing party. Talk amongst yourselves." And they have a great time learning about each other and finding out what they can do, and then eventually kind of turning it toward that. What's the job that we have here? Okay, well, let's go and do this. And now seeing how the parties react with this new person along, how they might do things differently, what information this person has that they might not have. And so it's a great way to, again, shake things up when it comes to the same old group that you've always had. Without bringing in a permanent new member, even a guest member can really have a fun turn on the sessions there and give a session that maybe you didn't think, that you hadn't considered there. Some interactions that might be different from than you had before. Okay. Now, I talked to my party about this a little bit, and our last session there, I kind of did something that was a little bit too much of a shakeup. It's all going to work out, but I will say this: I had planned for something in the story, something big to happen. It was going to be a real major shakeup to the party. I won't go into too many details about it here, but I had planned for the story to take a big turn, and it was a situation where the party was having a great time role playing and making plans and figuring things out and finding things out, and I started to run out of time. Now, if you have a situation where you have whatever time you need, then you have a then you have to. Sorry, I just saw a little comment there. so, so when you have a limited time, when you don't have a time limit on your games, you can kind of ebb and flow what happens a little more. You have more freedom. But if you're on a schedule where someone has, I have a hard out by this time here, or we are, in the case of our stream on Saturdays recording, we don't want to go too far over time unless we're planning for that or able to, everyone agrees to it kind of ahead of time. So, I mean, I want to respect everyone's time, and I want to respect the audience's time too. So I sort of pushed something a little too fast, a little too hard, and it led to some very crazy things happening. And if you watch the show, you'll see what I mean. But effectively, the bad guys made a big ambush, and it was a situation where the players were going to come out of it badly. And because I was pressed for time, and because the setup for this led to other things that were going to happen, I did end up taking away the players' agency in a lot of this. They couldn't really do much about what was happening. It sort of happened to them. And that made for some hurt feelings in some cases, some obvious frustration, obvious things there. Luckily, I mean, I have some wonderful players, and they all sort of have. You've talked about it since then, and well, I still feel that I pushed a little too hard and get them the opportunities here. They do understand the fact that this is part of the story and part of things here, and I was really was shaking it up in this case. I had intended to do this a big, not only to the plot but to the characters themselves, a big something big to happen to them. But leading into some more big events. So it was one of those ones that I and I see Zach there. You're right. Not every session can be spot on. Some are going to be stronger than others, and that is okay. So understand that even if you try something and it doesn't quite work out, or doesn't work out the way you want it, still embrace it and go with it. Your players are going to forgive you. Your players are going to still be invested in the story. You might need to take some twists and turns to put things back on track here. But the one thing you'll say is that it wasn't predictable. It wasn't boring. And oh boy, where are we going now? So keep that in mind. Yeah, it may be a plot element. It may be some big event. It may be something that happens off screen or something they find out about that is a big event that impacts the story in some way. So you're going to shake up the story by having something happen. Obviously, if you guys are watching a certain very famous animated series that's happening right now based on a certain D&D campaign, you know what I'm talking about from season 1 to season 2. Big thing happened that totally shakes up the campaign and takes it in a brand new direction. And then they go off in a totally new set of adventures, all based around this new crazy thing that's happened. So don't be afraid to introduce those big events into your game that are going to totally change the nature of it. It will add a lot of excitement. It'll add a lot of new avenues for adventures and role-playing. So go ahead and make sure you embrace those times when you can do it. So, and thank you guys. I do appreciate that. I will say, when it comes to shaking it up, there's obviously a lot of different ways you can do this, from small things to very big things. And it's all going to be good in the end. If your players are having fun, if you're having fun, if you're working toward a great story and a great adventure, that's what matters. And those little hiccups you have along the way, maybe those less than brilliant sessions or those amazingly awesome sessions there, you're going to have ways to really move things along and have a good time. So, with the shakeups here, I might expand on a couple of points here based on some of the questions that I had, but I'm not sure if Dow's still out there listening in, and if Stig's out there. But is there any follow-up questions you guys have, or things that that you want to see, questions you might have about this topic or any other topics for that matter? Yes, I will say Zach is a master of instilling dread in us in so many ways. Great way to really, we never know where things are going to go in a game. And uh, it's a lot of fun, and we never know where we're going to be end up next here. We are crawling around the inside of a giant monster right now, and it's been absolutely horrifying and amazing seeing where things go. And just the theme of your world, the things you have in your world there, you know what's there. You know what things are lurking out there that players haven't seen yet. So really take advantage of the unknown for your players because they don't know what you're bringing up next. So the idea that it's out there somewhere, give those little hints, give those little things that might kind of like drive them in a certain direction or go to look for that information there and then seeing what's really going on is a big way to kind of ramp up the campaign and set up new directions here. So question, okay, so Zach's question here: how do you feel about players taking the role of support characters for a few sessions for a shakeup? That can be really fun. If you're in a situation where you have the opportunity for players to have more than one character, maybe not playing at the same time, but me swapping one out for another. That can actually have a lot with the right group of people and the right group of characters. It can have a lot of fun, lead to a lot of fun moments, and bring in a lot more elements to a story. I know in Zach's game we had the situation here where my character was turned to stone, but in a scene there, and rather than just saying, "Oh, they fixed him and he's fine," I brought in a character who was an alchemist who could do that, and so basically he take on the responsibility to turn him back to normal. But then in that moment, then joined up with the party as a new character. We had another character who ended up having something bad happen. They got sort of kidnapped, then replaced with a shapeshifter. That person then got the shapeshifter ended up getting killed, and so a new character joined the party to find out that oh no, the original character was still there. We had to go rescue her. So again, where you have a change in the role of a party member, even if it's a person that they're the one character changing how they function or swapping out one character for another to really change things up there is a great way to go. And if it lasts for a couple sessions or if it becomes something that becomes more of a long-term thing for the party, or you have the opportunity to sort of have, again, a troop style game where your players can kind of come and go and you pick and choose your roster based on what's happening in the story. It's a great way to, if you have the ability to do that, if you have sort of a guild structure or if you have a guild or a mercenary company or just a large party of adventurers that don't all go out together, but they sort of pick and choose who's doing what missions. That can be a lot of fun to shake things up in terms of a character. Um, Oh, okay. So the question there, like a collection of NPCs throughout the game, like a rival party or a villain group, or a group of ancillary NPCs who do baby adventures for a few sessions, all controlled by NPCs, um, by PCs. Yeah. So yeah, I actually in a game we had a kind of a situation where we ended up like kind of pausing the scenario. The players, our main characters, all went off and did something, and were off in a different part of the world for a bit there, and then so just to shake things up, we literally had a different party do a different mission. So we all played different characters, so a lower level or maybe a higher level in your situation is with this here. So the idea that you basically have a chance to play a different group of characters in the same universe, in the same world, for a few sessions maybe. That's it. It's almost like having a one shot within the game with guests. And a great way to do this is if for some reason you have a couple of players or a player or two in your group in your normal group that can't join for a few sessions because they're going to be out of town or there's hopefully not any health issues or anything else like that. But I mean, if there's some reason why they can't play for a couple of weeks, putting it on pause and having the existing players and maybe somebody new joining in where you different group of people doing something else in the same world. It's a fun way. Again, it still advances plot in the world. And it still advances. Let's the story advance in new directions, but it doesn't derail the whole game. And it may be that these little fledgling NPCs or this rival group or something like that, maybe what they do ends up having an impact on the regular campaign, once it restarts. That's, again, a fun way to shake things up there. That's a great suggestion there, Zach. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Good to see you, Charlie. It's good to have you in here. So turn up there. I'm running Witchlight now, and I've been really apprehensive about bringing in the villain faction and then pilot them for cool things would be neat. Yeah. So if it's a situation where where you have a separate faction where again you have the players play those folks there to get to know kind of who they are, and maybe mess around with them a little bit there, and then come back to the party. That would be a lot. That would be a lot of fun. And it could even be that they'll become the main villains that they're going to be encountering, but maybe something that's happening on the sidelines or in a different part of the world that sort of may or may not have an impact on what's going on here. So there's a lot of fun ways to bring in those alternate groups into the story and still progress your own plot, but in ways that keep everything moving along. Okay. Sora's here. Very good. Good to see you. Yeah, and like that's there. Maybe not necessarily evil or villains, but just rivals to the party. That way, there may be a chance for maybe at some point, if a character from the main party dies, this other character comes in, or a character from the party decides to leave the group and go off on their own, or just something else. One of those rivals can join the party, and they already know who they are, at least to a degree. Fun way to play reputations of each other too, where basically you kind of, once you've established those people in the world, the fun thing is the party can then hear rumors about what they're up to. Oh, I just heard about these guys. They're off in this village saving these people from a horde of gnolls rampaging out of the forest. I mean, a fun way to kind of see little plot elements and little things that make your world come to life from people that they actually recognize. So I will say that Sora here is currently running 2 different parties in the same world, and we're not really in a situation where we're hearing about each other yet, but there's always been hints that we might run into each other at some point. Another person in our Discord there is running a game in the League of Legends universe, Runeterra, where he's running 2 different parties, one in the low-life areas of Zon, and one in the highfalutin areas of Piltover. And they've already had situations where the players have heard about the exploits of the other, and we are driving toward a situation where they're going to and at least not have a direct confrontation, but be involved in the same plot. So, again, great ways to expand a campaign beyond one group of people, expand a campaign beyond just one set of adventures even, or one party of adventurers. So, some fun things to go there. So, some other questions that we have out there. While I'm waiting for a couple to pop up there, hopefully get a couple more here. So the question that we had about new players, and brand new players, to kind of expand a little bit on that here, because I know the person may not be in here at some point here, but when you have those brand new folks, they're going to bring a different energy to the group. They're going to bring not only some confusion and some things where you kind of help them along there, but what can really help is potentially not only having another player sort of designated to help them out, but even if like one of the party members takes them under their wing, makes them a situation where they're either not so much an apprentice, but sort of almost like adopts them or makes them any way you can to make that player, that person, and that character all feel welcome into the game is going to go a long ways toward keeping that player, making sure that player feels welcome and enjoys their experience. Because the last thing we want to do, and I've had horror stories like this, where you join in a campaign, people know each other, and you're immediately treated like the outsider, and you're immediately treated like I don't belong here. This isn't. I mean, I'm not. And that's never fun for anybody. And you're going to see it won't have a really good success with creating a cohesive group and welcoming that person into the game. And if that person is brand new to role playing, they may have a hard time ever wanting to role play again. I've talked to people that have had that situation where they've They got in a role playing game. They got treated like dirt. They didn't enjoy themselves, and they never wanted to do it again until maybe even years later. They gave it another try and had a great time. And they had nothing. That that varying experience was a really eye opener to them. So whenever you can, be the better experience for those new folks there, those returning folks. You may have people that played a long time ago and gave it up because they didn't have time and now they want to come back. Again, they may not know the edition that you're playing in or the specific role-playing game you're playing in, but welcome them in and make sure they understand how things going. Yeah, so as Dragon there saying, yeah, brand new players are full of hope and wonder. So yeah, we bring them on board to help onboard the player there. A buddy mentor system there can really help out. The Jedi mind trick to Cantina's bouncer in Star Wars game. Oh no. That's so yeah. So in that case, your character had an interaction with an NPC. The main character you're playing died in a later encounter there, and then that NPC you ended up interacting with became the new player. Again, a great way to seamlessly bring somebody in the story. People they've already met, and now you have a new character, a new member of the team that's already got a tie in the campaign. That's a great way to go. Yeah, excellent. So I hope that helped. I hope that's gonna help out Stig's thing there. With Dow, I know you're out there. So the kind of encouraging those role playing moments. You have a situation, yes, where the role playing moments. One of the payoffs for a role playing moment could be what Dragon here is talking about. The fact is that you had that role playing interaction with an NPC, and then that NPC ended up becoming member of the party there. So literally, that role play time you had set up a future character. So yeah, keep that in mind as you go along here. So there's some fun ways to bring in those role playing situations can really drive something new for the game there. They can have some fun things down the road. So not a good way to shake things up and things to avoid. I would say this: try to avoid. I mean, obviously, one way to shake things up is to have a TPK. If there's something in the story that could bring them back or something like that, but I will say this, and this is the reason why this last session was so intense. There, number of characters did die in this ambush. I had planned for how they're going to come back, and I put it in the story, but they didn't know that as it was happening. So while it shook things up and really messed things up there, in a way, you have to have the trust of your players. And if you've been a very adversarial DM and been in a situation where they didn't know this was coming, in a situation where they know they're in a dangerous situation, they know there's bad things out there, they're dealing with terrible threats, death is a very possible thing. So, but it's when you just kind of force them into a situation where they didn't see it coming, and you just sort of like slam the hammer of God down on them. It's not going to be a very satisfying or very fun way to go. Yes, there were 3 that died out of 5. So yes, it was a big deal. But again, I had planned for that. And yeah, as Charlie says, forcing a TPK for a story is always a roll of the dice, especially when the players don't see it coming. It's one of those situations where you have to really be careful with that, and it's not easy. And I gotta say, it's going to lead to some trust issues, and it's going to lead to some situations where the party's going to be maybe wanting to switch things up now. Maybe it has sort of that self-doubt creeping in there, and in a way that makes for some interesting role play and for some character choices down the road. But again, it may also backfire, so got to be careful with that. it's just a tough thing to do there. Some other ways, other things to avoid there with shaking things up there is where you just make something completely frustrating to the party. And not so much that they think that they, but if you just introduce something that they a no-win scenario, and there's no way out of it, there's no way to come back from it there, that's going to just lead to some major resentment. Especially if you do it multiple times, you're not shaking it up. You're just basically, it's like the kicking over the kid's sandcastle. You do all this work and they come along and smack it and get rid of it. Or some things to really things there. If they, and this, my players will know this one, because a few of them were in this situation before. When you introduce something to the players where they show excitement about it, they say, hey, this is cool. Be it a city, be it a group of people, a mercenary group or something like that. And they start to interact and they show their interest in that. And you come along and take it away, or you smash it, or you kill off that group or something like that. And there's nothing they can do to save them. That's going to be frustrating to the players. And again, especially if it's one thing if it happens and something big happens as a result of that drives the story forward. But if it continues happening over and over again, like, here's this bag of money, I take away your money. Here's this cool item, I steal it. Here's this awesome place to hang out, I burn it to the ground. It's not fun if it keeps happening over and over again. So again, it's that sandcastle analogy of like, hey, this really cool thing, I really like this thing, crush. That's not shaking it up. That's more just kind of being a jerk to your players. And in certain scenarios and certain things, I mean, there's certain campaign settings out there where you don't get attached to things because you know it's temporary. But in a situation where they really show an interest in something and you just take it away, that's not a really great way to go to shake things up. Yeah. No, it's not to say that you can't take things away. Not at all. Is you need to handle it with care and really show a way for them to either get it back or to find something better. And it's another analogy there is saying also Lucy with a football. If you keep tricking them and and running the same thing over and over again, you're shaking it up, but you're also making it predictable because no, we know this is going to happen again, right? Foop, gone. So don't be Lucy with the football either. See. So other questions out there. A one way, something I would also avoid for shaking things up. Something else you might want to, um, yeah, Dharma when the walls fell, or Shaka when the walls fell. Yeah, Lucy with the football. We all know how that works. Another thing else to avoid there is just taking is giving them too much too quick. So something I've seen happen here a number of times, where we want to reward our players. And the temptation might be to keep handing them more stuff, more cool things. Here's this awesome thing. Here's this new ability that you have. And it becomes, while it can shake things up and make things kind of cool for the party there, it can come back to bite you in the butt because they can get too strong too fast. So you want to, shaking things up by giving someone loot, you might want to consider dialing that back a little bit. Or a great way to shake it up there without having a gradual thing is have loot that levels with the party, or have something that leads to something better down the road, or the idea of having a set items. The idea that, hey, this one item's cool. Finding the other item that goes with it makes it even better. Finding the third piece makes it even better. And that way there's something within the party that sort of, rather than just handing them the awesome thing right off the bat, it's something that grows throughout the campaign. And rather than being, here's this awesome thing, be cool, it's, here's the cool thing, and now there's story ties to go get more cool stuff related to that. So things to keep in mind there. So another potential way to shake things up with your party without going too far. Um, so how do you introduce a recurring NPC? Um, really having a cool NPC show up. Um, uh, we talked before about how to design cool NPCs or cool items or cool locations or things like that. But having someone who's an interesting character, maybe uh, an interesting backstory, some ties to the plot that you're working with there. But introduce a recurring NPC might be they run into him one time, and then they had a good interaction with them, or there was some cool information. They had some good information for them. The party may decide to go back to them in the future to find out more information, and so the party can sort of like make them a recurring NPC by going back to them over and over again. Or you can have the fun thing of this person is kind of shadowing the party. Maybe it's like your Joxer from The Witcher, Dandelion, the sidekick that keeps showing up there and keeps helping out in some way, but they're not like part of the group. So having almost like a mascot or some. Once the players have a home base, a recurring NPC can really be the shopkeepers around their home base or people that stay at home and are part of their group, but not the adventuring part of the group. So there's a couple different ways to introduce those recurring NPCs. See, if the party's not interested in the person, don't keep forcing them. If the party doesn't like them, maybe make them more of a rival or more of a villain. Somebody that shows up and the party goes, "Oh, not again, this guy." It can be a lot of fun too. So some fun ways to bring things in there by having a recurring NPC. Okay, a great thing here. How do you do when the PCs shake things up on accident? Killing an important NPC, dropping from a game and creating a plot hole, ignoring a clue or treasure. This is kind of a big one here, but it does work our way in here. But I'm going to take note of that one because that might be a fun one to deal with here. But sometimes the player can shake things up through their actions, something you didn't expect them to do, or something that happened that you weren't expecting to happen. And suddenly things got shook because now that NPC who was supposed to be something important is dead, or now they won't work with the party anymore because the party was jerks to them. If you have, again, if you have players that leave and it creates a plot hole in the game, you may have to find ways to kind of work around that, where you have. Where you have a situation where if this person was tied to this event, then finding somebody else, or it could be the fact that this person's no longer here, the event still happens, but now the connection isn't there and somebody else has to figure out how to deal with that. If they ignore important clues or treasure, if it's important enough that it's going to drive the story on, don't let them ignore it. This is the idea of if it's important that they succeed at something and failure is going to derail your game, don't make them test. Don't shake things up in that way. If the outcome is going to be interesting either way it goes, then the test is great. But if not succeeding is going to derail your game, don't have them test. Don't let them ignore something. If you have to, drop it in their inventory or just put the glowing red sign of this is important. Whatever you need to do within the story that's going to draw their attention to what you need them to do, then do that. Try not to be quite so obvious as the exclamation point above the NPC's head or the quest marker on the chest that has the thing that they needed in it there. But at the very least, make it something that they're like not likely going to ignore it, and if they do, bring it up again later. Maybe they don't go in the room there where the information they need is. So put the information in another room they're going into. You have that flexibility because they don't know what you planned. So as a DM, don't be afraid to say, you know what, you didn't go in there and find that thing. I'm going to put it here instead where you are going, and now you find the thing you need and we can move on. So the players often don't know they're shaking things up unless you tell them. So when you don't know what they're going to do, and they do something that's going to throw you completely off the rails, which they're going to do, find ways of still getting that important information to them. That important event is still going to happen, etc. Um, there's always a sword ready to replace their fallen master. Yeah, it may be that, hey, you killed this guy. He's got somebody else in the wings that's even more powerful, that he was reporting to. Uh, so that's a way to keep things go there. Exactly there, Dragon. You got if the bad guy gets killed too early, too easily, make a new bad guy. Or if you're in D&D or in a setting where it's possible, having a clone. It's a bit of a trope, a bit stereotypical, but it still works when somebody comes back. Or maybe that fallen bad guy gets picked up, the body gets recovered by a minion of theirs down the road, and they get raised from the dead, and they come back as something even more powerful, or they come back as themselves, now with even more of a hatred for the party to go and do more things. So, um, oh, so yeah, hopefully that helped out there. I think, uh, yeah, when those shakeups cause a major plot hole, when those shakeups don't go the way you expect them to do, it obviously is going to be a little bit of a tricky thing. But there's a lot of tools you can use. Again, the party doesn't know the whole story. Um, yeah, it's one of those. I don't think I've ever been in a game where there was a clone, or I was in a game where the villain was brought back because they were raised from the dead. Um, and it's sort of the plot line of what's happening now, but the bad guy was from 200 years ago. Um, so, uh, yeah, so the bad guy coming back as a clone can be fun because you get the whole adventure of finding the cloning facility and destroying it, finding out if this guy has more clones out there, or how they're cloning him or what they're doing. That's a fun way to go. Or the fun thing might be that a clone doesn't get the memories of the bad guy, so the bad guy the person shows up looking like the bad guy, but they're actually not him. They're just a clone that didn't get the memories. Fun little twist there for an NPC. Or maybe there's something they have to do to get the memories, or who knows? There's all kinds of fun ways of bringing in that, of keeping that bad guy around in a way. It isn't totally contrived, but can lead to some fun adventures down the road. So we talked a lot about shaking it up in various ways, and whether the players are shaking it up, or you're shaking it up, or the the party roster is shaking things up. There's all different things that can happen based on the story, based on the party, the group dynamic. All these different shakeups here they can potentially derail the game, but if you don't let them, they can really drive to some fun new stories, some fun directions maybe you didn't expect, or things that maybe they go in a way you didn't plan for, but now there's a cool different way to go, or there's a side branch that goes off and they can come back to the main plot. You have the ability to do that as the DM, and you know your story, you know your adventure. Um, Even in the situation where you're playing a store bought, or a pre-made module in some ways, the players are going to do that. So the best advice I can give you if you're doing that is, if the things get shaken up to the point where you don't know what to do, read through there and just kind of figure out, can I get this back on track, or do I need to go off in my own direction at this point? A lot of times those store bought adventures, those pre-made adventures, they don't have branching paths. You go down this way, and if you don't go that way, well, you might miss something. But then again, what they might get to, or you bring them back around to where they need to go here, it can be a fun way to see things happen. The best thing about that is, if they do shake things up, or you want to try something there, you can run that same adventure with some other party down the road, and it's going to run totally different. I know people that have run the same adventures multiple times, and it's different each time. Right, Zach? um, every time someone's in that situation, they're going to make different choices. They're going to shake things up in different ways, and you may decide to, as the storyteller, as a dungeon master, as a game master, whatever your designation is for your role playing game, you may decide to go in a different direction. So don't be afraid to give it a try. Um, only a couple minutes left here. I do want to say I know some folks here are in my games. Some folks I'm playing games with in other places here. And if you're watching out there on YouTube, you may have other gaming groups you're playing with and everything. Don't be afraid if you feel your character is in a rut. Ask your DM how you can shake things up. Maybe have some suggestions saying, hey, I like this guy, but he's just not doing what I wanted to do. Rather than scrapping the character, make a whole new character, say, hey, can I tweak this guy and make him more stealthy or more this or more that, or try something else out there that doesn't involve shaking up the entire story by bringing a different character in, but shakes up that character a little bit. Maybe there's something about this person that can be tweaked. Maybe they find religion with a god, or maybe they make a pact with an old one and want to delve down a warlock path, or maybe they just want to train. If you have a chance, there's some downtime and they want to train in something different, let them move their character and shake up their character a little bit. That way, you don't have a massive change of a roster, but the player gets a chance to try something a little bit different. So that's another option that's out there. So if you have the opportunity to shake things up there, go for it. It's always going to help. It's always going to lead to some more fun things, and you're going to have a chance to try something from a little different path than you tried before. In the future, I will say this because I want to kind of give a shout out here. Zach, right there, has a self-published novella that's out right now on it's out on Amazon, right? Right now, or on it was on Kindle. If you want to drop a link there, go for it. Or if you want to, or definitely do that. I'm also working on a project there to kind of bring one of his campaign worlds to life there, and we're gonna maybe have a chance to talk about that sometime in the future as things progress a little bit. I'd love to have a chance to talk about that experience and talk about that project in the future. So look forward to that down the road, and check out the book. If anybody else out there watching, definitely if you have cool things that you want to have shout out or cool things that you want to bring to people's attention there, throw it my way. I'll give it a quick plug here, or maybe put it up on our gamers channel there for things to direct people to. So we can definitely, we are a big community, growing community, and we have a lot of connections to a lot of other communities too. So anyway, we can support each other. I look forward to it. To doing that. With that in mind, there is a project that I've working on here with one of our other people and a number of other folks here. I'm working on a online blog and then eventually online magazine called RPG Counterpoint, talking about sort of DM advice and player advice and everything else, all things role-playing games. And different advice on different topics and everything else. And so our first articles have been submitted. And as we get closer to publishing things and getting things out there, we'll definitely make that available for everyone. So links to that will be showing up as well. So again, if you have any questions for topics in the future or suggestions or things you want to see down there, send me a message. Drop a message in the channel below. And if you're go and give us a like and tell your friends about us. Definitely like to see more and more people here talking in chat and having some good discussions. So with that, though, I'm going to sign off for this week. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out and asking so many great questions. Well, thanks for stopping by the Tanker. Drinks are on us next time, and we'll have some fun. Take care, everyone. Have fun.